Hi, I'm Manny, and this video is about the odd trajectory of craft flying around in our atmosphere, as explained to me in the automatic writings. Which, by the way, in this video I had it was a lot of fun receiving it and writing it, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did writing everything down and seeing their concept of why craft in our atmosphere seem to travel at such odd trajectory. So we'll get to that. This is a video in two parts, and in the first part we're going to talk about a couple of generalities so that we're again all on the same chapter. Craft flying around our atmosphere have been observed by thousands of people over thousands of years. In pre-biblical times, the Bible has several references to craft, and there seem to be a general common theme when they are reported and documented. I've never seen one. I'm one of those that wish I had, but I've never seen one. But if you read, and it's easy to find different observations of craft, it seems that there's a general theme. And we're going to talk about why that observation is and what the automatic writing, the ETs say, what happens and why it happens. The general observation seems to be that these craft, oftentimes very large, moving silently, some have lights, fewer have markings, but the general theme is that sometimes they can be various shapes, cigar shapes, triangle shapes. Oftentimes you see one, and then they seem to split into 5, 6, 7 or more. They talked about that too. But again, a general theme of observation is that the craft can seem to be either moving very slowly, silently, or just hovering somewhere. And it can pick up speed and move at a tremendous speed with almost no problem with acceleration. They just seem to be able to go from zero to where they want to go in a very short period of time. Stranger still is their ability to seem to be going first horizontally at a great rate of speed. They get to a certain point and they do a 45-degree angle. Now instead of north-south, they're going east-west, or they get to a certain point and they go straight up vertically. And that too they talked about. Before we get to their observations, let's get into some common areas. The first is the planet Earth, a planet in the universe like many others, but this is ours. And let's talk about the way it behaves in space. We know of at least 5 motions that the Earth has, and I'll tie into why that's important. I just want to set the generalities here before we get into the details of what they explain causes those various movements. The Earth, we know, rotates. So there's 5. First, it rotates on its axis. The axis is slightly tilted, and it rotates on the axis. That's 1. As any object that spins or rotates in its own axis, it also wobbles a little bit. Again, we go back to the toy top. If you spin it fast enough, you're seeing not only spinning very quickly, but also wobbling a little bit. The Earth does that. Also, it spins and wobbles. That's 2, but we know we are in orbit around the sun, so it is traveling around the sun. That's 3. If you add to that the fact that the sun is also in motion, rotating around our own galaxy, if you will, that's 4 motions of the Earth. And the 5th, of course, the galaxy itself is moving. So we have at least 5 ways in which our planet, and many other planets, by the way, this is a very common, is moving. And this is important in a few minutes. Then we have, of course, a tremendous influence of the sun. The sun is about 93 million miles away. Some people think that's about as close as we should have a nuclear plant to Earth, and they may be right. It takes 7 to 8 seconds for the light to get here. The sun then, I hate to use the word bombards, but it showers the Earth with not just light and heat that we see and feel, but the sun is showering the Earth with a lot of other energies, particle waves, energies that emanate from the tremendous fireball that is the sun. Furthermore, we're influenced by the rotation of the moon around the earth. So again, 5, we spin, we wobble, rotate around the sun rotates around the galaxy, and the galaxy in itself is moving, and we are constantly showered by energy from the sun. These are the things that we can observe, but there are more. We now know that we are covered by electromagnetic influences, and we've all seen the picture, or it's easy to find a picture where it's a graphic artist's depiction of the earth surrounded by what looks like the peelings of a grapefruit of energy around it. These are the ones that we understand. And the reason I'm explaining all this is because the writing indicates that the way to travel quickly around the atmosphere of the earth is not necessarily driven by their internal engines, but by being able to identify the tremendous forces that are already here and surrounding us. It is not just an internal engine that they move around with, although they have it because they need it, but it's their ability to understand and capture the tremendous forces that are all around us that causes that. It is their rapid acceleration. The cause of the rapid acceleration can be said to be they're hovering around and they know where these tremendous energy beams are. So all they do is get onto one of these waves and off they go. When they get to where the next wave, they can go up or 45-degree angle vertically or horizontally. It doesn't matter. They just hop onto another energy wave. This is important because when we observe it and we compare it to what we know as craft, I hate to say manned craft because we're dealing here with all kind of entities. The technology on the earth is we power our craft. They don't power their craft as much as use. They have the ability to identify, distinguish, and use the power energies and sources all around us. Tremendous potential. And they have learned where these power sources flow, whether it's electromagnetic, magnetic alone, based on gravity and other pulls and tugs that are all around us. And the key issue for them, is the identification of where these sources are. Because although they seem very random and unstable to us, and here we don't want to get too much into quantum physics, but where we may think that these powerful sources that are all around us are random, they're not. They are very predictable, very natural, and once you identify them, it is no different than if you go whitewater rafting and you're down some, I forget how they grade them, 3, 4, or 5 grade rapids, and you can be in a little eddy in relative calm, but then all you have to do is push off with your oar into one of these fast moving things. You have used the paddle really just to push off, because once you get into the stream takes over. The paddle then goes back to the use of perhaps just navigation, but it's certainly not propelling. The propelling is being done by the powerful stream that we know, we've identified. There's some risk to it, but we can live with them and have a lot of fun doing it. Elevate this concept to the idea that the earth is rotating, spinning, wobbling, bombarded by solar rays and other energy all around us, and to learn how to use the energy that's already there to really just hop on one of those energy waves and use them rather than propel yourself through an internal power system. The craft itself, I've been very careful to keep saying craft flying around our atmosphere. I'm trying to avoid the 3-letter term that everybody, but let's just say it. I don't want to use the term UFO because UFO immediately connotes certain, it's become part of the vernacular. And as soon as you say, well, a UFO, well, people already envision aliens that may be grays or green or whatever. And what they were showing me is very different than that. Some of the craft that we'll get to in part 2 that are actually here The only way I can start to equate it is to say an unmanned drone, except it's not a drone. It is almost a sentient craft. And I'll explain to that. That involves their use and technology, use of the technology that we call, AI and VR, artificial intelligence and virtual reality. The blending of artificial intelligence and virtual reality into a craft can then make that craft almost a sentient being, in that its skin, its surface, everything is designed to be an extension of your own senses. And this is part two of this, is going to be trying to explain how they blend that, so that they can actually feel and see and control the craft even when there's